I tried to dress like a grown-up this morning. When I think of joy, one of the first thoughts that came to my head was Assisi, Italy. That's this picture. It was 2010, and I was burning out. I was just like about done with everything. My career was in full speed ahead. We had started a church in Denver. Active, all while not even knowing if I believed in God at that point. I'm like, I don't have enough time to even ask that question. Do I believe any of this? I'm like caught up in this whole world of stuff that I don't even know if I wasn't really in it. I was like, it was just passing before me. And so in a panic, one day I remember sitting on my couch and Googled best spiritual retreats in the world. I was like, I'm gonna hit the wall here. So Assisi, Italy came up. This is a picture from their website, actually. This retreat center, and it was a week long of silence, which I'd never done anything like that. It sounded bad, and it ended up being worse than I thought it was. It was so hard. Like I'd done some meditation before, but just like silent, like we would be eating at the table and I hear people like chewing their cereal. I was like, this is terrible. But something I could feel, I was just like in the, so the silence was like bringing it all up even louder, right? All that stuff in me that I didn't want to see and didn't want to feel. And then at some point, it was like something cracked or fell off or broke. I don't know how to describe it, but it was just, and I was like, oh, the world like opened up. And I remember I was walking through the town. You can kind of see the town down in there. And you could see so Assisi is where St. Francis of Assisi used to spend his time, apparently like talking to the animals and doing whatever magical things St. Francis used to do. But I would walk around the town and just everything was suddenly alive. Like the artwork was like speaking, and the food that the cereal that I'm eating at the table with people crunching was suddenly like miraculous. And the world was alive again. And I was literally at one point dancing on these hills of Assisi, which I was not a dancer at the time, but just completely like in life, in joy. And I love seeing those pictures that you shared up top. And I wonder, like, what is it about these things? Like, yeah, of course, this is a beautiful image, but there's a lot of people that walk around that neighborhood that are not walking around in joy. There's a lot of people that saw those flowers and squirrels and cats and pictures. They walked by that same cat, that same squirrel. They didn't notice. They didn't feel joy necessarily. In fact, some of us can see the exact same thing. Some people might be like, God, why are all these squirrels here? Or, oh, the flowers are just not as many as they used to be last year. We can see the exact same things in the outer world, but have a completely different experience of them. I was thinking about joy and what I used to think joy was. And I remember this story really kind of, the story of Paul and Silas was a story that I heard a lot growing up in church about how joy can transcend your circumstances. We knew that. There was a story of Paul and Silas praying and singing hymn to God while they're in prison, while they're locked up in these horrible, terrible circumstances, yet they somehow found a way to be singing and joyful. And we were taught, like in Philippians, rejoice in the Lord always, and again I say rejoice. We could feel that there was kind of something true about that, because most of us have probably experienced joy in a way, I hope that you have, that wasn't, it's not directly tied to like you saw the squirrel. It's bigger than a squirrel, right? Like joy, when you experience joy, it's like it does feel bigger than the circumstances that you're in. It's like it unlocks something bigger. But I think what I used to see in this story, or in verses like rejoice in the Lord always, was something more like optimism or hope. And I don't think joy is the same thing. I don't think it's not the same thing as happiness or hope or positivity. Those things aren't bad. But there's something about joy that is deeper, perhaps. Like these other emotions, sometimes they can be more circumstantial. You get an extra little treat and you get happy. Ooh, nice, I got some extra money, nice. That goes away. Joy is something deeper that happens, that's the question, like when and why? Because again, a lot of people saw the same pictures that you all saw, but some of you found the joy in it. I found the joy in Assisi. When I first got to Assisi, all those same things were not full of joy. The cereal was annoying, right? The art was old. The bread was bread. The silence was scary. But then something flipped, and it was all joy. What flipped? And this is where I'd like to notice that first question that Pete asked us at the beginning, like how is joy related to who we see ourselves to be? Because in the tradition I grew up with, I was taught that what I essentially was broken. That I'm a person who is inherently fallen because of Adam and Eve and the original sin. And this was an example of, this is Augustine. He was a big theological guy. He said, we do not say that God is the author of evil, and yet we can correctly say that human beings are born evil as a result of the bond of original sin. And that's kind of the worldview that I grew up in. But that has some downfalls. Like, one, if you see yourself as broken, you're probably going to act more broken. How we see ourselves, what we believe ourselves to be, is typically how we behave. And people that believe themselves to be bad tend to act bad. And then I came across another way of seeing it, another different tradition. Here's from the Upanishads. There's this Vedantic way of what they talk about your essential nature as Sat Chit Ananda, which means existence, consciousness, bliss. So they're basically saying at the core of what you are is this like pure consciousness bliss. It was a very different picture of the internal core than I had grown up with. So, but I think, what do you do with these two contrasting realities? Because there is something about both, I think, that can go a little sour. Even the consciousness bliss thing, like if you have such this like positive view of yourself that you never could do anything that harms anybody, or I'm happy, you can tend to actually bypass the areas of your life where it doesn't feel like consciousness, existence, bliss, and just have this sort of like grasping on to optimism or positivity that can actually become toxic in some ways as well, and spiritual narcissism. So, and then you have this shame stuff on the other side that probably makes us live worse. So what in this is true? And I actually think that both of them are true, but with a necessary caveat that we need to define who we're talking about. Because the I that we say in a question like this, who am I, is the most unexamined question for most of us. It's because it's so fundamental. It's like, who am I? What do you mean? What does that question even mean? Like, the guy who's talking to you, who am I? Like, I think, therefore I am. So whoever's thinking these thoughts and whoever's here talking to you. So we don't even look at what it is that we're thinking is the me. We don't even know, it's like, am I good or am I bad? We're questioning the good or bad more than we're questioning the am I. And like, what is that pointing to? What am I pointing to when I'm pointing to I? And there's been this system that I've learned a lot about, that I know a lot of you know around these parts, which I'm excited. I was so excited to hear this when part of why I was excited to come do this artist in residency here. The fact that you've talked about internal family systems, because this way of seeing ourselves has been really important in my own journey for a lot of healing, but also it's actually made a lot of sense of why religion and spirituality can actually be a really beautiful, helpful thing sometimes. And that is, so in internal family systems, they don't look at people as singular subjects. So like, the way we talk is a little bit more accurate to how things are, I think, than sometimes we actually like make it in spirituality or even psychology. Sometimes we really simplify people into, are you good? Are you bad? Are you happy? Are you sad? Are you whatever? We're dividing up into boxes. The truth is often way messier. It's like, if I ask you how you are and you're really honest, you really look inside, there's probably not even one answer. I don't know, I'm a little tired, part of me is kind of happy, part of me is cranky, or I'm hungry. You got all this stuff going on. There's a whole ecosystem in here. Different systems, different parts, even if like, what do you believe? What do you mean, what do I believe? I have parts of me that are very devout Christian probably. And I probably got an atheist part that's over there like, these morons. Whatever, like we have these different ways of seeing things in different circumstances and different ways of experiencing things and different lenses that come up in different circumstances. Why do I suddenly act like I'm 17 again when I'm back at my parents' house, Like, these are parts of us that are, they sort of are like people themselves. That's what IFS does. It takes these parts of us, these different lenses, and there's different kinds. There's managers, there's firefighters, there's exiles, and of course we don't have time to get into the depth of this system because it's beautifully complex. But the basic idea is that there's these little mini swirls of me that take on a me in certain circumstances, and what those are called is parts in IFS. And the thing about these parts is they are swirling around what is, like in this image, IFS would call the core self. They capitalize S in self. And the self in IFS is not another part. It's not fragmented. It's not trying to control things. It's not trying to get approval or get safe or get like anything that's like trying to do something is a part. And then there's just like this clear being at the center of all this, within all of this that they call self. I also like calling it God. I like the ground of being. I think when you notice that you're not busy being somebody, that you're not busy trying to make this thing happen or trying to extract value from somebody or for something, or you're not off in the future looking from a different perspective of the me out there, or in the past looking from the perspective of the me back there, but you're just truly here. There's not really, even speaking of a me in that circumstance doesn't really check out. It's just being. You're just being here. I think that's what happened when you saw the squirrel and the cat. I don't think it was like you gained the squirrel. If you had seen the picture of the squirrel, like you saw the squirrel run by, and you're like, ooh, check, I have to see 10 squirrels today. Finally, and you're just extracting, you may not have noticed the joy. And I think what this points to when we pay attention to what's happening when joy comes, I don't think it's actually like adding stuff into it. I don't think it's adding to life. I think we're actually like dropping all the things that are blocking life normally in our own minds. We're actually like becoming more present to what's just here. When you can actually see the squirrel, when you can actually taste the bread, when you can actually hear the cereal, not with judgment. Before in a CC, I was hearing my own judgment. I wasn't actually hearing the crunch of the cereal. The crunch of the cereal, without judgment, was just, it's the qualities of self in IFS are not the kind of qualities where we're trying to fix everything and make it all different. It's non-judgmental, loving awareness. It's the ground of our being. It's what's always here when we're not trying busy get away from it. The ground of our being. This is a picture of me when I had my first baby, Amelie. And I remember such joy. But as I was thinking back about that, Jessica saw this picture in my studio yesterday. I was like, oh, I should put that up. Because I remember feeling such joy, but even though I had gained this new relationship with this new baby that I'm just meeting, there was also the joy was also what had fallen away in this moment. Like, it was actually more about, because up to that moment, I was worried. Like, birth is intense, right? Childbirth is a serious situation. I'm like, who's gonna die here? Who's gonna live? Like, am I gonna be a good dad? Am I gonna like this? What could go wrong? There's all these things that could go wrong. The world is scary. I'm off living in the future of like, what's gonna happen? And then all of that, holding this baby, suddenly all of that was gone. All of these parts that were trying to be here and trying to be there and trying to make sure this certain outcome would happen didn't matter anymore. And it was just here and just now. And it looked like this baby. And the joy that was accessed was more fundamental than a circumstance. It was who I am, but I think who we all are in our unexiled being, in our ungrasping presence. I think joy is what we are when we aren't actively resisting it. And that may sound on the surface a little like, I'm not resisting it, because that's how I kind of heard even those scriptures that I've mentioned up top, like rejoice in the Lord always. When as a kid, it was almost like a moral imperative or something. Like, if you're really good, then you should feel joyful. And so saying like, it's who you are when you're actively resisting it. If you put a moral on, like, I shouldn't be actively resisting it, that could almost be shamey. It's not, because you actually are completely free. Like, the human imagination is amazing. The ability to go off into the future, to live in some other place that's not even real, is part of how we build this thing together. It's how we have relationships and build a building that we can all sit together. And we have to imagine things that are not yet to be effective in creating communities and creating a beautiful world. So it's a powerful gift, but because, like all powerful gifts, all powerful medicines can be poison, and all powerful tools can be weapons. And the imagination can either be this tool that we use, even if there's like some tension and stress and like, oh, we got to get this done, we got to get this done. The problem is we end up living there and finding our identity there. Finding our identity in who I should be, who I want to be, rather than in this, here and now. And there's just this, and to notice that that is an active thing that's happening now, that the identification with the imagination, the identification with who I believe myself to be in my belief system, or what I should be, or what I was, I'm ashamed of what I was, all that stuff, when it's held on to in the present moment, that is what blocks the joy. And it's active. It's like you can feel it. If you'd like, you could join me for a second in just making a fist and just noticing what it feels like to have a fist. Make it as tight as you can, if you'd like, and just kind of feel what that feels like. You can even, and then what do you have to do to relax that? I don't need to give you 10 steps to relax that. Just stop. It's really quite simple. When you notice that you're the one doing it. I liked, Alan Watts gave this teaching that I enjoyed about, if you notice, if you're poking your own eyes, you really only have one step to stop. It's just noticing that you're poking your own eyes. And when we notice, as soon as you notice that the joy that you are, that's present in this moment, the fullness of joy, and your presence is fullness of joy, that's the only thing blocking that is by trying to be something other than it, by actively tightening somewhere. And this happens in a lot of different ways. And I'll talk about that in a second, but before I show that, I just want to show this little picture of Lou here, because Lou, some of you have seen Lou. She was here last week or 2 weeks ago. Little one about this, yay, hi. Here's her this week. She came down for school dressed like this. Lou's a hero of mine with joy, because Lou doesn't, I don't know if I mentioned, so she has Down syndrome, but she's not super like abstract with most of her life. She's not really like off in the future being like, I don't know if this is going to work out like this, and she's not lost in the thoughts about all that of like trying to put it all together. I really should be the kind of person who does. No, it's like Spider-Man costume, cool. It's way more direct. It's like, and that doesn't mean she's happy all the time. She can be really grumpy, really, bossy and stuff, but there's something that's alive about it. And there's something there's still kind of a joy even in it, like even in what you might call negative emotions. Sometimes it's free. Like when it's free, it moves quick, and it's not stuck on all these different identities. It's just Spider-Man, cool, let's do it. So I wanted just to acknowledge my joy hero here. But moving from this closed fist, tightening, avoiding, actively resisting the joy that you are, I found that can happen in several, and moving into the open hand of just more naturally who you are. I found that there could be several places that happens. And we don't have time to get into all this, but I'll just give you a tiny. I'm writing a book about this right now, so I've got lots of thoughts, but I'll keep them short. So we can look at, these are layers of our being in a way. So when we start noticing that restriction, one of the first things that shuts down is the world, our sense of the outer world. Like when you're panicked, if you're running from a bear, you're not going to smell the roses probably. Like when you're busy, like you're eating before work and you're late, you're running late, you're like, oh God, and your mind's a million miles an hour, you're not tasting the food, really. It's just kind of, the world is just getting collapsed into a me, into a ball, a bundle of just me and whatever I'm feeling. I'm apart in IFS language. It's like I'm busy, or I'm frustrated, or I'm anxious, or I'm whatever, and the whole world collapses and gets bundled into that. And I stop noticing the richness of this moment. This happened a couple weeks ago here. I was about to lead worship, and right before I went out, I just noticed, because I'm doing this a lot, where I'm just kind of noticing, is the world as alive as I know it to be? And sometimes if something starts feeling a little faded, or something starts feeling a little tight, sometimes it's in my body, sometimes I'm like, what's going on? And so these are kind of layers. I've just begun to do some scans sometimes of like, starting with the senses is really helpful sometimes. Like, okay, let me just check in with the world. What does it look like? What does it sound like? What does it smell like? What does it taste like? So I was getting ready to come out for worship, and I just noticed a little like something a little tight. And so I did a scan. I checked through all my senses, and I got to my sense of taste. And as soon as I noticed my sense of taste, or as soon as I started trying to pay attention to my sense of taste, my mind got busy, and I started thinking about something. I was like, oh, interesting. Okay, so there's a little bundle. That's what I was looking for in there, like something that's bundled together with something else. You know, I've been with people and been like, how do you feel in your body when you talk about that kind of thing? And they're like, well, I think about my dad and what he used to do. And I was like, that's not a sensation. But there's a bundling that happens. Like sometimes we try to pay attention to something, but our mind's like, nope, this way. And those bundles, I think those are parts. I think there are reasons and strategies. But so this particular morning, I checked in with my sense of taste. My mind got busy. I did it again. Same thing happened. I kind of like, suddenly I'm thinking about something, like what's going on? So then I really checked in, sat with it for a second, really tried to taste. I realized I had some sweetness in my mouth that I wasn't paying attention to. And then I remembered I had just eaten one of those wonderful donuts out there. And I saw some part of me was like kind of embarrassed that I had just eaten donuts before I got up for some reason. It's like, we shouldn't be eating donuts right now. And so I got to go, oh, hi. That's okay. And it's like a little kid in there or something. It's like, that's what IFS, you start having a relationship with your system, where we have sometimes these things that aren't logical necessarily to your adult thinking mind, but sometimes it's like, I don't know, I feel a little embarrassed that we ate a donut. I don't know if that's bad. Oh, okay, hi, I love you. And then it kind of softened. It was seen, it was loved, it was included. And then it softened, and the world got bigger again. And this are all these different layers. So you can go through the outer senses, then you go through the inner world. You can find like your sensations, emotions, thought, your perceptions. And again, you're looking for bundling. So this is just pay attention to your life. Kind of, these are all the different layers that I've found. In that layer 3 beneath the inner world parts, this is where you might start noticing that sometimes there are patterns, these parts, that if every time I eat sweets, that same things happen to me, it would behoove me to pay attention to that. Like, okay, there might be something going on there. That there might be some trauma, there might be some need for some therapy, for some embodied, sometimes stuff actually gets embodied over time, or like similar tensions that we hold. Suddenly it's like, that's why I always have that knot in my shoulder, because I'm always holding myself like this, because it's from these patterns. And so at layer 3, that's kind of a long term. We can work with this stuff in the long term to keep us more present to our aliveness and our joy that we fundamentally are. And then those bottom 2 parts we don't have to get into too much, but it's basically just noticing how it's connected to who I believe myself to be. Because sometimes that's the first thing that gets ignored, is who I think that I am. And what I think of myself, this concept of myself, can't ever actually be joy complete, because it's an idea. And if I mistake the livingness, the spirit of what I am, with this idea, this identity of what I am. This thing's not alive, it's an idea. This is alive. This is where the joy is. And so noticing that difference of like, if I'm living in a pale, hellish world right now, it's because I believe myself. Just, you can have faith, even if it doesn't make sense to you at first. There's something about the experience of the world that is tied to who I believe myself to be. And just that might be a good first clue to get into some of those deeper layers. And just being curious about that. Who do I believe myself to be? And that is tied to your joy. So maybe we could just, for a second, do that and just go in to our experience a little bit and notice that joy is not something that we need to strive for. It's not something that we need to feel guilty about having or not having. It's not something we can actually possess. It's something that we are. It's a description of who we are when we're not constricted, just like peace. I think that's what the fruit of the Spirit is. Love, joy, peace, patience. All those things are, I used to, again, think of them as something to like gain in the future. But what I notice is when I let go of everything that I'm holding on to that's making this identity of myself, and I just allow this moment to be as full as it is, those things are the natural things that happen. And so you have those two pictures of Augustine and the Satchidananda. If I'm feeling myself to be broken, that's because I'm dealing with a part that is broken. That's its experience anyway. It feels like it's cut off. It is inherently sinful, if you will, in that it feels separate. It's separate. And what it needs is to find the greater ground. I really like 12 steps, the idea that you need this higher power. And they say that it doesn't even really matter what it is in 12 steps. Like, it can be God, it can be, the light switch if you need it to be. But something bigger than what you feel yourself to be. Because when you are cut off from the greater whole of your aliveness, you're always going to be exiled. You're always going to be a broken sinner. But when that releases, when that gets surrendered, thy will be done, and you sort of melt into this moment, as this moment, there's not even really a me to speak of meaningfully. It's just this. It's just love. It's just being. It's just joy. And that's the Satchidananda. That's the description of what we are when we're not busy being me. The model. Me, the constriction. Me, the part. And so the union of that happens when it's seen and loved. When you notice how you're constricted, how you're resisting joy, and it's seen and it's loved and it's included. Hi, oh, you're embarrassed about the donut. Okay, I love you. It's okay. And so if we can just for a moment kind of look into our own systems here, and that's what we're looking to do. We're just looking for any lost sheep of our experience. It might be a sense of the outer world. It might be a thought that we're not noticing as a thought anymore, but we're lost in its story and the identity of it. It's because it's not just a thought now, it's me thinking this thought, which means it's very important. So let's just start by just kind of paying attention to the senses for a second and just see if there's any lost sheep wandering away from the fold that would like to be welcomed. Notice your senses of hearing, sight. Even behind your eyelids, there's still visual information. Your sense of touch, your skin, what does the temperature of the air feel like? What do your clothes feel like? Notice that you have a sense of taste and of smell. Notice that you have sensations happening in the body. And see if any of them want to be seen. Think of like a kid who's like, hey, look, mom, look, dad, look what I'm doing. Like, just look at your sensations like that for a second. Just like, wow, look at what the body's doing. Wants to be seen. Can we look at our emotions like that? Like, wow, look, emotion, look, anxiety, amazing. Stress, fear, sadness, happiness. Amazing. Look at what the body's doing. Look what the mind is doing. And the thoughts, look at the thoughts. We can create an entire imaginary universe here in our minds. Amazing. You can imagine a pink elephant here. Suddenly there's one. How beautiful. But just notice that it's thought. This is part of the quality of our experience of this. The miracle of this moment includes thought, imagination. And notice that you're none of these things by themselves. You are not just that thought. You're not just this sensation. You're not just this concept or this body or this mind. You're far more mysterious than this. You're the livingness that's animating this body, this mind. You're the awareness, the clear space, the sky in which all these clouds are moving. And anywhere that feels stuck or separate or needing love or wanting safety, you just invite to be here and to find it here because it's actually available here in God. All the safety that you're looking for, it's not going to be found in the future. Your security will never be somewhere else than here. That's just an idea. That's a house built on sand. See if you can allow any parts of you that are willing to try out their feet on the ground of here and now, to just stand here securely. Any parts of you that are wanting love or approval, they're welcome to drink it in here and now, because this is where it is. We're at the well. We're at the source of it in this moment. So if there's any parts of you that would like to drink, let them drink. And if there's any tiredness from trying to control all of this all the time, if any parts of you are weary of trying to make it all work, trying to fit it all together, and they'd like to rest into a thy will be done, they're welcome and invited into that rest and joy as well. May we go into our worlds this week with open eyes, open ears, sensitive tongues and nostrils and skin, to encounter the fullness of life. And when you encounter restriction and constriction, may that even be a grace, a reminder to pause, to breathe, to notice what wants to be noticed. To come back to yourself, to the joy of the presence of God that is here and now. And may that joy that you are be a blessing to this world, bringing shalom everywhere you go. Amen. Pete, I think. You want to say anything? You want me to do something? Do a song and dance?
I found that really enriching. I got to hear him twice today. Any of you feel the same way? Yeah. So Michael doesn't know we're doing this. This is totally impromptu. So we've benefited a lot from having Michael here today and for the last 3 months and before that, periodically. I wondered if, what's it been like for you in this experience?
Yeah, gosh. Really beautiful. Like, look at it. I'm now wearing a cross.
Wow, that's a real step.
It is. I mean, it might sound funny, but like when we started this, I was like, okay, coming to a church. I remember. I was okay. I was healed enough at that point to like, it was more like theoretical. Like, I think that church can be beautiful. I think it's possible. But then being here week after week has been just like fun, yes, enjoyable, yes, but also like it's gotten into my body more the love and the beauty that you're like the importance of true church, like church that is embodied love together, embodied shalom together is like, it's so vital for the world that we live in, and I've missed it, and it's been so beautiful being here that the cross, like it literally is part, this, I wouldn't be wearing this without crosswalk, I don't think. Like, it's because it's an important, it's not even, I don't even feel like it's personal. For me, it's not like I need any kind of language, honestly, for my spirituality at this point, but we need shared language, we need shared rituals, we need shared symbols that we can say what they mean together. But there are times where like co-regulating, cooperating, co-creating, we can do so much more together. Spirituality, I don't think is when it gets too personal, like as beautiful as it is to go into the forest and just commune with the divine with the trees. I love doing that, of course. But there's something about people together, embodied together, that is really important. And to me, that's a big part of what this represents, is like this, this movement, this tradition that I was born into, and the potential that it has to be a shared space of joy, of love, of presence, has been incredibly inspiring and beautiful and meaningful for my journey and where I'm going from here. So thank you.
That's lovely. Thank you very much. Very good. Yeah, good. Anybody, we have we're a little earlier than normal. Anybody have a question or comment for Michael, either about his teaching or any part of his life history is open for just anything? Well, oh yeah, Jenny. So her question is for our studio audience and beyond, what your plans are going beyond.
Yeah, so Mystic Hymnal is a group, so Marcy and Jessica are helping with Mystic Hymnal as well. They'll be here that night. But there's a group of people that have been writing songs for this purpose of like, can we have shared practice, music especially. That's part of like what I've missed when I was out of church for years. What I missed the most was singing together with people. But a lot of times I've been in places where even in more progressive spaces or more open spaces, they don't know what to sing. Because like the group singing industry, like the worship industry and stuff, is not created for big views of God, in my opinion. It's usually, a lot of the songs are more manageable idols of God. Again, so been talking to different songwriters, like, can we write some songs that are made for group singing? The thing is, the world doesn't tend to incentivize that for artists and songwriters. We're incentivized to sing the most beautiful thing that I can sound like I'm like me singing. Listen to me perform, which is great and beautiful, but there's something about group singing that is ancient and it's primordial. It's like, I think it's arguable that us singing around fires together is at the heart of all of our art, that there's something about every civilization has this, singing together as part of its thing. There's a way that when we get civilized and adulted, that a lot of us get cut off from our own voice, like, oh, I don't sing. So there's shame around it, which affects how we're embodied, it affects our joy, our sense of who we are. So there's something powerful and profound to me about group singing, and what we're doing is going around, we've got 16 or something now, in May. We're gonna be driving around doing these different events everywhere, and they're meant to be really singable. Really, a lot of the songs we've done here, some of them were written for here, actually. Singable, beautiful, and unitive. And unitive meaning like inviting of presence and shared love, rather than dogma and fear and all the things that separate us. So, yeah, excited about that. I'm writing that book, doing all sorts of different projects, but the Mystic Hymnal is something I'm excited about. It's something that this community has very directly influenced and impacted by being a guinea pig, thank you. And also just inspiring for me to just be part of this community and in any ways that you've allowed me to be. And so I'm excited for that to be shared broader.
Yeah, and that really was part of our original discussions. I mean, even back last July, we're kind of dreaming about, well, what could it look like, you know? And so I appreciate you coming and bringing all your fancy gizmos, but mainly just bringing you and being free to just do you here, because that's been really stretching for us in ways we couldn't have imagined, and we're better for it. And you know, we've got bones, you know, to carry us forward. We've got a plan for, I think, will be pretty cool. Because of your help, we now have a cool crosswalk chorus, which I think is pretty cool. And so you're going to be hearing more of them, and we've got an interesting mix, and we've got new stuff to sing from a different space that we didn't have before, that really no place had before. And so and we have our own song that this guy wrote called Shalom, which is awesome. So very, very excited for that. So anyway, thank you for that. Any other questions or comments or? All right. Well, I want to congratulate you on wearing a cross again. I get you. There was probably a 4 or 5 year period. I wore a cross from the time I was 20 at a pivotal point in my life. Won't go into that. Up until about 5 years ago, 24/7, all the time. And I took it off because I was so frustrated with what I saw Christianity becoming. And I didn't want to be associated with it. Does that make any sense? It's kind of weird for a guy who pastors a church called Crosswalk that I was having trouble with this association. Yeah. But you know what drew me back was the beauty and the profoundness of what this symbol represents for us. Not penal substitutionary atonement, but a deep willingness, service to humanity, love for humanity, love to peace, love to nonviolent resistance. And it's kind of like other symbols in our culture that, you know, felt like had been robbed, taken away. And so for me, putting that cross on wasn't just resonating with what it represents in Jesus' life, but it was also taking it back from the people who took it back. You know what I mean? And just saying, it's almost an act of resistance. It's like, you're not going to take my damn cross away from me. You know what I mean? So I get you, and I'm so thrilled. And I remember, you know, our first interview in July. You know, it was just so rich and so special to have you share with us and sort of evolve with us, and realizing that part of your core is to do this. You know, to use your gifts to bring people together, but now in such a different way. It's just beautiful. So we look forward, and we're not done with you. We know you're coming back in a couple weeks, and we're going to bring him back. We are hosting an annual meeting for our region that we're a part of, and that means lots of churches from all over the country, really, mostly West Coast, are going to be here. And I really want them to be exposed, to this different way of thinking. So we'll have them back in October for sure, and who knows when before. But you're not done with this, man. So anyway, all right, Pam, yeah.
I felt like I was supposed to get up and say something, and if you know me, you know I'm not really a verbal processor. I'm prepared with anything to say this morning, but being part of the board and part of the group that said yes to inviting you to be here, I think we had a sense from the beginning that we were not supposed to put like this super tight framework around it, that we needed to leave space for the leading of the Holy Spirit. And I just so appreciate the ways that you walked into that, into this circumstance where we weren't like, do this, do this, do this, but you took that sort of ambiguity that we handed to you and you did something really beautiful with it. And so your presence here has been a gift to us. And in no way, shape, form, or fashion, the fact that folks didn't stand up to say this, that, or the other, I feel like that doesn't reflect the ways that we feel about you. There's sort of like what I would describe as like a satiation, like we feel full, and blessed and honored that you've decided to come here, and you're a little part of us, and I think what I hear you saying is that we're a little part of you, and so that relationship is going to continue on. So thank you for being here, because it's meant a lot to us.
Wow, yeah. For those who are watching online, the streaming, that was Pam Gums, the chair of our board, who said a lot of amazing things. That's good. Close enough. All right, guys, thank you so much for being here. We'll see you next week. We have Brian Worrell back in the house next week, so looking forward to that. Thanks for coming.